It's ecologically unsound.
You're ecologically unsound.
Bollocks.
Newscum.
News, scum, come. Newscum.
Piece starting.
You say you're ready, but you don't even have your headphones on.
How about
Are they plugged in?
that? Let's just. There we are. This meeting is being recorded. Thank goodness for that. There we are. How's that?
Right, now you've got to go to audios and make it so that the speaker is your earphones rather than the computer. You're the one that wants to start, like, on the moment we start these Zooms, you want to just go, and yet you're never ready. And now you've changed your audio settings for microphone, not a speaker, and I can't hear. Now I can hear you.
Oh, is it working?
Well, the microphone's working. I can't say if you're listening to this through the speakers or through the earphones.
Yeah, I'm listening to it through the earphones. That's good.
The sound.
So,
check if the microphone setting is on the microphone and not something else.
it's on microphone array rather than mic USB.
Mic USB probably, because is it plugged in with a
Okay.
USB?
Yeah, so I put it on a USB now.
Sounds much better. Sounds good.
Yeah, brilliant. Right, thundering into the podcast as usual.
Yeah, well, we have to because I couldn't
Elegantly starting.
get into the Zoom that I usually use, the work Zoom that I break into. So this is my personal Zoom account, which is a free account, which means that the meeting will end. Will you just let me finish? The meeting will end automatically after 40 minutes.
Oh, Christ.
So we'll have to...
How about that, listeners? That's going to be a real benefit.
So there will be some editing in this one for sure. We'll have to then start up again to finish off the podcast. That's the level we're operating here at Newscum. It's really the pits, to be fair.
It's like News 24, but more like News 40 minutes.
Right. But, and I guess this is, for you, this is quite the come down from your gallivanting around the internet last week, going on all sorts of other podcasts, better podcasts, where you're speaking seriously, pretending to be a real journalist.
I don't feel like a... Go on.
No, you go on. You interrupted.
I'm just responding like in a normal conversation.
No, you didn't let me finish.
Oh, yeah. Okay, right.
Go on.
I've never had this problem in real life.
What problem? Well, one of the problems is Zoom, and there's a slight delay. That is an issue with Zoom.
Delay.
That is an issue. I appreciate that. Anyway, what did you want to say, please, Matt?
Right. I was going to say that I don't feel like a real journalist because we were being all apocalyptic last week, and then Donald Trump fixed it all and is great again.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. But the main thing is that you didn't mention this podcast once, as far as I know.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, this is your place, Matt. You can go off there and do your, gay ballet on these, other shows, but this is where you belong.
What other shows was I on?
I don't know, but you were telling me that you were doing other things. And I was jealous. And I was like, you think you're better than me? You think you're better than this? This is like Billy Elliot. You can go off and do your shit, but you have to come home to me. This is my house. And this is, you have to play by my rules. All right? You're never going to achieve anything, Matt. This is where you belong. You'll be on Newscum until you die, doing this shit with me shouting at you every day. Because this is where you belong, lad. You belong here on Newscum. I think Billy Elliot would be a lot better if he had a really passionate interest in ballet, but he was quite mediocre at it. So he went to the classes and stuff and had a good time and then got bullied and everything. Went down to London, got rejected, and then had to go back and live in the Northeast and be a miner his whole life.
But he wouldn't be able to be a miner his whole life because they shut the pits.
When's it set? I guess they did. I don't know.
It'd have to
That
be
was the problem with
call
Zoolander.
centre.
It was unrealistic. You know that scene with John Voight? I was like, where are these mines that John Voight's working in?
Oh, yeah. So is this you being, because you always want to be a daddy? You always want to be my dad. Is this another manifest? You usually like to be a nice dad, but is this your nasty dad coming out?
Do I like to be a nice dad? Do I?
You usually like to be a nice dad, but you're being a nasty dad there.
Yeah, well, sometimes you've got to be firm to be kind, or whatever the phrase is.
You've got to be firm to be kind. Sounds like a chat-up line.
Do you want to talk about Iran?
Well, the head of NATO called Donald Trump daddy yesterday. Did you see that?
Well, Trump definitely has, I was going to say daddy issues. That's not the phrase. He has like daddy vibes. Trump is definitely the daddy. That picture I sent you of when he was saying, Israel, no, turn those planes around. And it's just a picture of him pointing. That was like, say what you want. Like if Starmer tried that, everyone would have accepted that if Israel had changed the planes, right, it wouldn't have had to do with Starmer. And if they hadn't, it would be fine.
You're not going out dressed like that. Remove that boob tube.
So, yeah, anyway, Iran.
Yeah, well, we were wrong, or certainly I was wrong.
Whoa. Let's hard edit there. We were not wrong, Matt. Let's just...
Sorry, yeah. Do you never admit you're wrong on the internet? Is that the...
No, I would. Absolutely. I just haven't ever been wrong.
Good, well done.
So
yeah, judicious editing.
We were right. I said, for example, that we talked about Trump and the sort of relationship with the deep state and stuff, and I said he would go in, and he did. So we're right.
Yeah.
And you were, of course, right originally about there being a war.
A war, yeah.
In June.
Yes. Yeah.
In a roundabout way, that's what you've always been saying. And it turned out to be true. I think this podcast is just going incredibly well. Another thing, I don't know if you saw Jimmy Dore.
I missed that one, actually. Yeah, I usually watch Jimmy, but what did he say?
They digged up some article that found out that the whole plan to bomb the sites, whatever it's called, Operation Midnight Hammer, which is not as good a name as Operation Worms. I think that would have been better.
Yeah.
Operation Midnight Hammer was planned under Biden. We also said that without any evidence.
Yes.
We just throw shit out there and we're right. I think the problem with this podcast is that we don't really deal in facts, just opinions. But they're always, the opinions are generally right. But
they're roughly right.
Yeah. But people are like really obsessed with facts. And I think the reason for that is there's been a lot of propaganda to promote facts as good.
Yes.
You get a lot of stuff on the BBC, like only reporting the facts. Like no propaganda. This is the truth. Whereas what we need to do is promote sort of off the cuff opinions as being like really important things. And that's what this podcast's about. Only opinions, no research.
Yeah,
off
no
the
facts.
cuff, changing our mind every second. Flip-flopping.
Newscum is the only channel that flip-flops.
I want it's got BBC Verify, you've got the context. I want BBC Flip-Flop, where they just kind of throw shit out there. Throw shit at a dartboard.
That's literally what we're doing.
But we're bullseye every time on BBC Flip-Flop.
That's great. That's how Trump ended that first Truth Social, wasn't it? Bullseye.
He always finishes them with "Thank you for this.
Thank you for listening." We have
no. It's not. It's like
lunatic.
"Thank you for your concern on this matter" or something like that. It's something that if you ask like a 5-year-old to write a formal letter, they sort of try and guess at the kind of phrasing you might use. Exactly. But I think, I mean, he does it absolutely every time. And I think that he did it once and some old woman came up to him and said, "I really like how respectful you are in your tweets," or whatever it is. And he said, and because Trump's the kind of guy, and this is kind of why he's such a winner, is that if he hears like one thing that he's once done that's won one person's vote, he will do that for the rest of the time, just so he knows he gets that person's vote every time. because he generally, like, that's the kind of, the motivation of the sort of people that they'll like chase every single vote. Like, they're not like, well, it's only one vote, we're going to try, like Starmer's like, well, we're going to try and triangulate and get like the most that we can in this particular thing. Trump's like, no, I'm going to chase every single individual with one thing I can offer them.
Yeah, it seems so sort of emotion driven, doesn't it? Whereas Starmer is so sort of cold, and that's been like that for a while, I guess, in British politics. Yeah, even Nigel Farage is quite ordinary in his delivery and stuff. No one. But Boris Johnson, detached irony, but definitely different. Not Trump. Trump is, like Trump swearing at Israel. That was funny. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I don't think it was that funny. I mean, people are saying that it was like really hilarious. I thought it was it was really interesting, kind of powerful. If you're sort of persuaded by that, by the sort of thing. I'm flip flopping again. I don't think it was funny. It was. It was just notable. But I can't keep saying that things are notable on the podcast. We're like, oh, it's amazing, Daniel. It's incredible what happened there. Bloody hell. Ooh, that's why we're always right. Because things were definitely notable. You can't deny
it. So I think that I got quite a few things right, but I was a little bit like, oh, well, there hasn't been a massive destruction of the whole country and an ill-conceived idea at regime change, but I think we did, which has led to a destruction of cities. But I think what we did get right is it was a really shit situation where probably at least 600 people were killed in the past couple of weeks in a completely unnecessary war, when there were negotiations that were planned for 2 weeks ago that could easily have solved the enrichment, nuclear enrichment problem. It's created a precedent where we now have the idea that the US and Israel can go in and bomb nuclear sites wherever it wants,
and Russia,
and Russia.
It's given the green light. It's given the green light worldwide, presumably.
What do you think Russia will do in terms of reacting to that particular thing? I mean, there's no nuclear sites in. Well, there are nuclear power stations, I suppose, in Ukraine. But what do you mean?
I guess that's what I meant. Although I imagine there'll be some people that would argue that there are secret nuclear sites in Ukraine, because it's secret everything in Ukraine. Some people think. I've noted that. It's notable that some people think that. What do I think? Well, I think Russia's winning the war, so it doesn't need to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's my... I think
Russia wants to continue the war. As we all know, bombing nuclear sites is de-escalating. That's what it is.
Yeah. I think that they... I think perhaps what I've...
what you were wrong about. Well, I kind of was right. Together we were right. We came to.
I'm happy to be wrong because I know that I'm a little bit on edge about.
But together we were right, and that's the main thing.
Together we were. Newscum was right.
Newscum was right. Yes, that's the main thing. Newscum is always right. Individuals may fall, but the system as a whole maintains. So you said that you didn't understand. Well, you didn't understand how there would be a problem in bombing these sites. And we used the classic military simulator Worms. We didn't even have to play it because it's all up here. I have the entire simulator. I can simulate any war in the world through the Worms simulator. You just give me a war and I'll play it out in Worms and tell you what happens. And so we played out the bunker busting. I don't know if you remember this. And you said, in Worms, you fire one bomb, you cause a crater, and then you fire another directly into that crater, and you cause a sort of a second crater further down. And you were like, that's all they had to do was fire a few of them. And they did fire a few of them. But it turns out it wasn't that simple. And as I said, in Worms, you fire one down, you cause a crater. You attempt to fire the other to the very bottom of that crater, but it never works. It always bounces off the side. And then the second crater is sort of diagonally. So I think that's what happens.
I'm doing it for the benefit of viewers,
Yeah.
of listeners, because it's a mountainside. So it's like a bunker buster bomb. If it's going to go perpendicular into the ground, then it's going to be it's going to go 60 meters into the earth. That's probably where they tested it out in the Nevada desert and all that. But if it's in the side of a mountain, it might be a bit awkward. And that's why you've got all these intelligence reports now coming out saying that it hasn't properly destroyed the facility.
And that's what we predicted, sort of, through our dialogue.
Through our worms thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, and worms particularly, it's really difficult when you're trying to hit the side of a mountain. I don't know if you remember, things would like fly off into the water.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But the other thing about bunker busters is that bombs, so it goes deep into the ground before exploding.
Yeah.
But exploding inside of anything is really difficult. I don't really understand the physics of it, but it's like why people dive on a grenade to save other people, because if something is close to the explosion, it hampers its ability. So I think the bunker busters in general probably aren't as effective as you just imagine that they would just be incredible, because they're these incredibly powerful bombs. But in reality, they're so powerful because underground it barely does anything.
If you've got earth caked in around them, and although I know this sounds really big, but I got an image of the size of these things the other day. They're about the size or at least the weight of a double-decker bus. If you think about, if a double-decker bus is crushed up.
Wait, how big are those stealth
packed in
planes?
Well, I'm not sure how big they are, but they're the only ones that are strong enough to carry the actual thing.
They carry like 3, don't they? Or is
it might have been one in each. It might have been one in each. I'm not sure, but yeah, they are mega heavy and mega huge. But if you think about, I don't really quite know what the size of the actual nuclear facilities are, but I imagine that there must be at least a mile wide or whatever, or half a mile wide. It is going to take quite a lot of hits to get that. To get that. Anyway, we don't really know because we haven't got the detailed intelligence. It doesn't even look like Trump has got it at the moment. He's just like, yeah, it's been done. It's not going to be a problem for years now.
Yeah, well, it's funny because Trump, on the one hand, probably is full of shit, but he's lying in order to try and keep the ceasefire. Whereas the CIA, whoever's actually done the satellite imagery of it, probably telling the truth. But at the same time, the reason that they leaked it, right? I think to CNN.
I think there's some contradictory reports because I think CIA have said that the attacks were successful in taking it out, but then another part of the intelligence community has said otherwise. And I think everyone's kind of waiting.
We predicted this. I was talking last time about conspiracies, different parts of the deep state fighting against each other amongst themselves. It's all in Newscum. It's all in last week's episode.
Well done. That's the only news source that you need. Out there. The only news source. If you're listening, if you want some flip-flopping opinions based on
half-remembered things from watching 2CTV.
Commodore 64. Yeah, and Commodore 64.
Yeah, war simulations on Commodore. I played Worms on Amiga, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe it was more accurate.
It was a PC. Yeah. Yeah. It prefigured the 4-hour nuclear attacks more effectively than the Commodore 64 versions.
Someone leaked it, right? Leaked this report that they hadn't blown up the bunkers.
Yeah.
I mean, presumably Iran knew about these bombs and tried to make the facility.
Yeah, I think that was the whole point that they built. They built the bombs in the earlier Obama administration. I don't know if they've been probably testing them in the deserts for years, but the Americans, and then the Iranians built the Fordow facility. Oh, I don't know, but I think it was around about the same time. So they're all reacting against each other like that, and they built it like 90 meters down, didn't they?
They also said that
bombs can go.
That they probably took everybody out, and they may have a more secretive base.
Yeah, and even if they don't have a more secretive base, they may have at least taken out the necessary centrifuges and uranium to make bombs. So, I mean, I think that's what we were worried about. Certainly, what I was worried about was that, they could, if there is a full-scale war that had developed there, which involved attacks on civilians in Tehran, and there were some attacks on Tehran, but my mate's brother-in-law had a windows blown in Tehran and had to move out to the villages outside Tehran, for example. So there was a bit of that going on. But I think, what we were concerned about is if this turned into a full-scale war, you could easily imagine the Iranian regime desperate, trying to build a nuclear weapon, which they could probably have in a matter of weeks. Who knows if they might smuggle it to terrorists, or if they might just sort of unveil it somehow to say to Israel, stop attacking, else we're going to use this in some way or another. And that really could have put a hell of a lot of heat into the situation. And then the other concern, but that hasn't happened, but maybe I'm not sure if it might. Certainly Iran, you'd have thought, would be definitely talking about whether they're going to make a bomb of some kind. But then the other issue was, will Iran attack America's bases in the Middle East? And of course they did, but to such a weak extent that it didn't actually lead to escalation, which I was quite surprised at. And I think similarly with the closing of the Strait of Hormuz, I thought that, the conventional wisdom was that those things were going to happen. That was quite commonly said. I've just been watching a podcast with the trigonometry one with Konstantin Kisin and Glenn Greenwald. And Glenn Greenwald, this was recorded just before Trump declared the ceasefire, and Greenwald was saying, well, there's obviously going to be attacks on American bases. Everyone accepts that. And then, of course, there kind of was, but not to the extent that it escalated anything. So I think
it didn't escalate because Trump could have used that if he wanted to escalate it.
If he'd wanted to, but he didn't. So that suggests to me that although Trump is perhaps more bellicose than we might have hoped, given that only 6 months ago he was saying we want to halve global military spending, which sounds rather pie in the sky now. At least he does seem to have the nous to not want to get into a never-ending escalation, and that was it. Very interesting when he did do the. These guys don't know what the fuck they're doing. That was the first time really I've seen him slap down Israel. I mean, he did it in the context of slapping down Iran, but I've never really seen an American president say, Israel, they're basically turn your fucking planes around, wave out the window to your chums in Iran, and shut the fuck up, basically. And that's quite encouraging. I know that what Trump is doing is unnecessary. It could all have been fixed 2 weeks ago with simple negotiations. So all he's really doing is almost play acting as a leader, but at least he's acting as a leader.
Well, okay, so this is probably a good moment to bring in this YouTube channel that I've been watching this week called Predictive History. It's a kind of stupid name, but it's basically the guy, I think he's a high school teacher. This is what he says anyway, although I've seen him referred to as a professor as well. He's a Canadian.
Yeah, people do that.
You need a microphone.
Just saying, people do that. People call professors.
That's true, actually.
Professors. I keep getting called a professor. I'm like,
no, that's true.
Please make me a professor.
This is not the point. This is not the fucking point. But it does, people put like professor blah blah, not just calling him professor. But anyway, this is really... The point is that he filmed a number of his lectures over last year, and one of them's gone viral. Now, I don't know what the fuck this class is that he teaches, right? Because it's basically, if it's high school, it's insane. So he just films himself in front of the class. You can't see the students giving these lectures, which are basically on U.S. foreign policy. They're on basically sort of realpolitik, deep state kind of analysis of the deep state and imperialist project of America, and game theory. And it's right. And he just comes out with just bluntly, like, just talks about the Israeli lobby and stuff. I'm like, this is great, but I'm like, how is that even? Like, what class is this? Like, what's the test? What is this? Is this like an after-school thing that he does? Anyway, one of these went viral, which was called the Iran Trap. That was the name of the class. And in it, he goes through he predicts firstly that Trump will win the election. Yep. This was last year, which isn't a massively incredible prediction, but and then he says if Trump does win, there very likely will be a war with Iran. And then he goes through some of the reasoning for that. Now, some of it's obvious stuff, like the propaganda that the US will use in the build-up to that is that Iran wants a nuclear weapon. But this is kind of stuff that we've heard for years. I mean, this is something that's been raised, right, by US administrations for decades, obviously going back, well, even before 9/11, but certainly after 9/11, when the US were on a big expedition through the Middle East. There was all this talk about, you go, what was it? Iraq, Syria, Iran, or whatever the list was. And so some of this wasn't particularly, I don't think, it's not particularly revelatory, what he was saying. But the fact that he sort of clearly makes this prediction about Trump, and that Trump, he sees the American administration's, the uniparty idea. There's lots of areas of American deep state and both the Democratic Party and Republicans who want a war with Iran. But his idea was that if Trump gets in, it's more likely. And then he sort of comes up with some evidence for that. And it's pretty compelling, a lot of it. It goes off into some quite interesting but weird places sometimes. But I mean, one of the things that so the argument against it, right, is that a lot of Trump's base is anti-war. And a lot of the rhetoric that he came out with before the election was to try and stop all of this gallivanting around the world. But his evidence was in his first term, how influenced he was by the Israeli lobby. And he was very influenced by it, right? I mean, first you've got the killing of... killing of Qasem Soleimani. Soleimani or Soleimani. And then you've got the moving of the Israeli embassy. That was a massive thing. That no other administration. Obviously, the Democrats are very pro-Israel, but they'd never done something like this. And then you got all the weird stuff about those people that were very close to Trump, who were often visiting the White House. I can't remember their names now, but sort of very high up in the Israeli lobby, very rich individuals. And everybody kind of knew that. Right? Miriam.
And I can't remember the others, but yeah.
She's like Madonna. Just Miriam.
Yeah. Dear Miriam.
Yeah. But anyway, and everybody kind of knows that stuff. But it was kind of dismissed in the lead up to this election, how influenced he was by the Israeli lobby. I mean, partly I think it was because no one thought it could get any worse in the Middle East, which was foolish, to say the least. If there's one place things can get worse, it's the Middle East. So that was very much dismissed. I also think a lot of people now who were always very anti-Trump, mostly coming from a sort of Democrat position or a centrist position, are saying, well, you see how he's mishandling all this stuff? I mean, things have changed so much every day. Maybe they're not saying that now that there's a ceasefire, but maybe 2 days ago they were saying that. But, overall, this kind of catastrophe and stuff. But the thing about them, those people, is no one was complaining that Trump was going to escalate the war in the Middle East. They were talking about ending democracy, the taking away of civil liberties, and all that stuff. To some degree, you can argue the case for that. But there was no warning about this because Biden was, doing a shitter as it was in that field. So they didn't want to talk about it anyway. So I don't really buy into that. But I do think there is some criticism for, not myself, obviously, but probably you, and certainly a lot of people who were sort of on the anti-war left or just sort of anti-war in general, supporting of Trump, who dismissed a lot of the Israeli stuff. And I think partly just in hope that there was a candidate that was anti-war, and also partly because they just hated the Dems. And I can appreciate that. I think there was a lot of tacit support for Trump just because of the way the Democratic Party had treated, what's his face? Bernie Sanders.
Oh, Bernie Sanders. Oh, right. Okay, yeah. Going back to...
So there was like a want for the Democrats to be punished for that. And even if they wouldn't have voted for Trump or didn't endorse Trump, they enjoyed the pain of the Democratic Party was feeling, We have 10
Yeah.
minutes left of this free Zoom call. What a professional operation this is.
Biggest,
say what you want to say. You got 10 minutes. Go.
the biggest networks in the world, Daniel, the most professional in the world, have advert breaks about every 12 minutes. We just have to get off Zoom every 40 minutes.
That's true.
We here at BBC Flip Flop are way better than we're about 3 times more content.
And better content, maybe?
And better content.
Sure.
You've got a cast iron endorsement from me. You've got at least one person endorsing this. There's
no.
podcast.
Oh yeah, there is a countdown. We've got 9 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe at the end we can say, and now we can, and now we cross to the part of the world where you're from, or whatever.
We'll do local news
for the local.
We'll do local news in the next
flip-flop
one.
news.
Oh, I can't wait to hear.
Flip-flopping.
Can't wait to hear about Bath and all the happy.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to that sandwich shop? The Italian meatball sandwich.
Avellino's. It's always delicious. I go there quite regularly. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well,
do some kind of
great. That's the sort of news we like here on Newscum.
Yeah,
News from Bath. Local man
excellent
visits
Italian
delicious sandwich shop regularly. If only we had more news like that, Matt, I think everything would be good. Everything would be fine. Anyway, what was this guy saying, this so-called professor? So,
yeah, go
on. His main argument for why there would be a war was that everybody, including Iran, was up for it. And he goes through the motivations of each of the main players, which are Saudi Arabia.
Including Iran.
Did I stutter? I mean, I do stutter a lot, but I don't think I did then. We've got Saudi Arabia, Israel, Iran, the US. Mm-hmm. And by the US, you mean everybody else. Germany, France, Britain. All the fucking lemmings that follow them off the cliff. Right? So they're all up for the war. And Iran is up for the war. Now, why is Iran up for the war? That's probably his weakest argument, to be fair. Mainly it's revenge. I mean, as the leader of the revenge party, I can completely understand that. But I don't know if Iran is really up for completely destroying themselves. But, he thinks that Iran thinks they can win. And maybe they can. And he talks a lot about the sort of psychology of that. And the fact that if Iran did win, I mean, here's the wager. Iran could win. Well, if
Iran did win, it could win.
Yeah, if you accept that Iran could win, first thing, and then you say, well, maybe let's just say hypothetically it did win. That's assuming that it could, which it might not be able to. But if it could and it did, that might be the end of the US as a force, as a sort of worldwide
pain in the arse,
right? Because it would mean sort of Vietnam, but on a much bigger scale at a time when the US politically, internally, is not able to function as it is, never mind with that kind of thing on it. And secondly, it being weaker in terms of economically, it's already weaker, and the military spending that it has right now is very difficult to maintain. And if it's sucked into this war, the other thing will be that other players will then come forward. I mean, his idea about why Russia invaded Ukraine was that it was a challenge to US supremacy, which is, it's an interesting. He's very convincing.
They always say that, though. Yeah,
but I think I think it's more nuanced than that. Of course, I would say that there is lots of reasons why Russia was kind of forced into a position to act in some way. And I think most people would say that the invasion was the wrong thing to do, but it's like rock and hard place. It's similar with the Hamas attack. Now, details of that attack you might disagree with. A lot of the details of that attack were made up. But generally, attacking the Israeli defenses is completely justified under international law on the one hand. And secondly, what else was Hamas going to do at that particular point? Taking of the hostages, that kind of thing.
Sausages,
the eating of anyway. So, but you say the same thing, right, about Russia, right, the invasion, right? They were kind of forced into it, but at the same time, the fact that they were able to do it, the fact that they felt they could do it, this is his idea, is that he felt that Putin made a gamble that he could do it and win, because the US was weaker than it had once been. And maybe there's some truth to that, maybe not. I mean, certainly it looks like Russia could win, and will. And if Russia could win, and they did win, then that would, but I mean, anyway, getting back, so his idea about Iran is that. Now, his idea is just that Iran wants revenge. But I guess, like, implied is also Iran wants the US to be out of the Middle East. And so if they could win a war, which they think they can, and then they did, that would see the US withdrawing, particularly from that part of the world. I mean, this is the idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I know the idea. It's just not very realistic.
His idea is that it will become a ground war. This is the thing. The US can win the war, but if it becomes a ground war, they'll probably lose, and it'll become a Vietnam, and they will actually draft soldiers, or attempt to. There'll be an attempt to draft soldiers, and that will cause such civil strife domestically in the US.
Well, that's one of the things that was worrying me in general, is I can't see how there can be a ground war, because there's nowhere to land any troops. Right, there's nowhere to bring any... So this is my concern, has always been, in fact, even going back to when this idea of bombing Iran was first seriously discussed in 2007, 2008, you can't really have a ground invasion. So there's not even, I mean, obviously it would be horrendous to do that, but it's almost more, the situation is almost more liable to end up with bigger bombs or even nuclear weapons, because it can only really be an air war, because the Americans can't put ground troops in anywhere. So it just has to be bomb, 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 bomb.
He has an answer for that as well. He says that what Putin will do early on is say that there can be no nukes involved. If nukes are involved, then Russia will get involved. Yeah. And that Putin will play that against the US. So the US will be trapped into conventional warfare. Yeah. And he just thinks the asymmetrical warfare of Iran has a good chance of willing out. Now, the thing about all this is, like, yes, it's all very stupid, but it's premised on the idea that this war is wanted. This war is wanted by a lot of people in the US, and if it's also wanted by Iran, and it's obviously wanted by a lot of people in Israel, then you can see the sort of logic of that playing out, despite people not wanting it, including Trump. So this is the craziest bit, right? Is his idea of Trump's motivations. So he thinks that Trump wants to end he is like completely sincere in his wanting to destroy the deep state, but primarily to destroy the kind of democratic global elite oligarchy that's rejected him and scuppered his plans to win in 2020 and all that. But he wants revenge on them. He wants to destroy US empire, basically.
Yeah.
But he'll do that through giving them what they want, which is a war with Iran. And so what he'll do is, and it's funny because he said all of this last year, and some of it he's got wrong a bit, some of it he hasn't. But what's played out in the last few days has been Trump, on the one hand, escalating what's going on, but on the other hand, seeming not to. And rhetorically not doing, and looking as if, and even though, of course, the US are in full control of what Israel is doing, and as you said, like they could have stopped Israel, but they didn't stop Israel. But it looks like they wanted to stop Israel, but they didn't. And it's this weird thing that's going on where Trump looks like he's trying to get a ceasefire, but every day it just doesn't work out. It gets worse and worse. It's very strange, right?
He actually had an analogy for it yesterday. Well, when the head of NATO called him daddy, did you see what the context of that was?
No.
Donald Trump was saying Iran and Israel are like two toddlers fighting, and you can't just go in there and stop them fighting immediately because they need to get it out of their system. You've got to let them fight for 2 or 3 minutes, and then you drag them away from each other. I mean, it's very old school.
That's a great point. We're going to have to leave it on that, Matt, because we've got less than a minute. So I don't know. It was giving me a countdown in seconds before, and now it's stopped doing that. So I have no idea when we're going to be cut off. It's exciting, though, isn't it?
Join us after the break, where we shall be delving further into the geopolitical situation.
Don't worry, there'll be no break for you. It'll be instantaneous. We'll have aged by years, but not you.
Yeah, but there will be the weather first. And local news, where we will flip-flop about the cat in the tree. The cat wasn't in the tree after all. The fireman didn't need to rescue the cat.
That's classic, like, YouTube comments would be like, there was no cat.
Yeah.
It's deep state.
Recording in progress. So, because we've just had this break, even though the audience hadn't. Do you want to hear the breaking news? I got a text from my friend who's just said, I was in touch with the Brave band Kneecap yesterday, and they're looking forward to their Glastonbury appearance. Glastonbury's on at the moment, where Zionists heavily pressured the organisers to ban it. The gig's at 4 p.m. on Saturday, and hopefully will be aired live on BBC TV. Please tune in. So that'll be interesting, wouldn't it, to watch the Glastonbury, see what happens with old Kneecap.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. I totally forgot. I mean, there's other stuff that we could be talking about. We end up talking about Iran again, which is the part of the problem, I think, is the distraction of this bullshit all the time dominating the media. But let's just finish it off anyway.
Yeah, sure.
So toddlers, right, fighting, that does play into it, right? Is that he's seeing it like it's not his war. He doesn't want this to happen. Obviously, he could stop it happening, and yet he's not. And it's this. And I was thinking, right, it is far-fetched. I mean, it's not far-fetched. It's just really going out on a limb. Like, no real evidence for that. No real evidence for any of this stuff, really. It's speculating. Flip-flopping. Yeah. Throwing shit at the dartboard, right? But what it got me thinking about was COVID. Donald Trump was the president during COVID. Donald Trump put in the emergency laws so they could rush through the vaccines. Donald Trump, I can't remember exactly if he endorsed the lockdowns, but certainly allowed them to take. Like, Donald Trump was the guy at the time. And yet okay, Biden took over and probably was more hardcore. But coming out of it, nobody associates Donald Trump with draconian laws of the lockdown. Whatever you think, if it was rightly or wrongly, people see Donald Trump. I mean, partly because the Democrats framed it that way as well. They framed him as hampering what they were doing, which in the end kind of worked in his favor because it kept him with his base. Now, I don't know if the Democrats have said anything about Iran. They're just keeping stum. Ideally, what you want, or what Trump would want in this situation, would be that they would be pushing for this, and he would be like, I'm trying to stop the deep state again, but they're just, those little scamps, can't get them all. And we're going into Iran, guys. I wish we weren't, but, and that would play perfectly, right? For this idea of him allowing the war to take place, but not taking any responsibility for it. And then coming.
No, I don't agree. Oh. If I've misinterpreted you, then maybe I have, but I don't think that Donald Trump wants to look like he's forced into taking a position reluctantly, a violent position on Iran reluctantly. I think what Donald Trump wants to do is surf whatever tidal wave he has in order to look like a leader. That's his MO.
This is predictive history's idea that I'm relaying to you. Sorry, we've had such a long break that you've probably forgotten all about it. But that I don't necessarily agree with it. I just thought it was an interesting idea to posit, and there's some evidence, and the fact that he made this a year ago, and there's some evidence in the sort of rhetoric that Donald Trump has used recently that kind of could be seen to be doing that. But yeah, it is quite a stretch. But I think this is the issue, right? That we kind of talked about last time. Was it's so odd. The different kind of decisions that are being made or not being made by particularly Donald Trump and the U.S. administration. But it's like, what is, who knows what's going on? Maybe it is Israel. Maybe Israel's behind everything. I mean, Jimmy Dore's really coming around to the idea that Israel controls the U.S. And hey, why not? I was thinking, why not? Maybe Israel does. Maybe it's the Jews. Maybe it's just Jewish people control the world. And I thought about this for a bit, and I thought, okay, for me, that's not a problem, right? Because I'm like a woke lefty guy, right? And I believe in equality and equity. Like that really gay.
Both of them at the same time.
Both of them at the same time.
Can you do that?
Yeah, of course you can. Equality, equity, communism, utopian thing, Stalinism. All of them, all the good ones, all together, right? That's what you want. Right. And so if I see, we're all living together in harmony. Right. The problem with Jews controlling the world is for people that believe in meritocracy. right? Because there's only a very small amount of Jewish people worldwide, right? And Israel is obviously a very small state. So how have they been able to control everything? Well, they must be superior, right? They must
Right.
actually be superior. And if you believe in meritocracy and all of that kind of stuff, you will have to obviously bow down to the superior race of the Jewish people. And I don't think people are ready to accept that. They're not ready to accept their own logic. And I think that's a shame. But they just think it through, right? You get a lot of people talking about, well, what's British society, British values is superior to what is coming in, the influx of immigrants and stuff. And we should protect that as something that is better. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, but clearly the Jews are the best. So they should take over everything in your logic, right? And you see it in the way that there's this rejection of Islam, but this kind of weird phrase that's very popular now, which is Judeo-Christian society. I'm like, that's not a thing, right? There is Christian society, and then there's obviously the superior Judeo society, and the Christians are trying to like get in, like, no, we're together on this. It's like, no, you're not, mate. You are inferior, and we should just be ruled by a Jewish elite, which we kind of already are because they're the best, right? So
I thought that the Christians were.
hey, wait, just what's your argument against that?
I couldn't really follow it. It sounded insane.
Well, you're obviously not Jewish. You're not intelligent enough to follow this argument.
Oh, okay.
But just trust
I
me.
thought that the whole point. Okay, I thought that the whole point was that at least in the United States, it was the Christian fundamentalists, which make up about whatever 10% of the population, who wanted to bring about end times.
Yeah, but why do they
so
want
that the
that?
Jews will convert to Christianity?
Why do
when
they want
God
that?
comes down.
They've been fooled. They've been corrupted by by Jewish propaganda. It's corrupted the Christian mindset to be enslaved by Israel. That's why America's sending all its money to Israel while the infrastructure of the heart of empire rots because it's been sucked dry by the Jewish state, and no one can stop them because they're better. They're better than us. And if you believe in meritocracy, that's what you get. What can I say?
Right. Jolly good. What's next on the agenda?
Oh yeah, Glastonbury. Okay, so Glastonbury starts today, I guess. Yeah, so Kneecap have been on the
loose.
On the loose. They've been on the listings for a long time. And there's a lot of people have been trying to stop them from performing because they've got a habit of getting the crowd to shout "Free Palestine" during their gigs. And the people don't want that. People don't want to see that on the BBC, Matt, when they're enjoying their afternoon tea. They want to see "Free Palestine" being shouted all the time. Now, the one thing I don't get about it is they're on quite a small stage. When I first heard about this, I assumed they were either very early on the main stage or quite high up on the other stage. But despite they're obviously being very infamous these days, they're still not a massive group. And so they're playing one of the smaller stages, which the BBC easily could just not show. They don't show most of the stuff. I mean, I guess these days with BBC iPlayer, you can kind of choose what you want to watch. But I don't know if you can choose absolutely every stage at all times. Maybe you can. And maybe they're just concerned that, if you press the red button, if you've still got that fucking option and you go down the list to whatever stage they're on, a few people might hear the phrase "Free Palestine." But it's certainly not going to be on BBC One. I wouldn't have thought. That'll be Rick Astley doing his, which is great. He does the Saturday afternoon slot most years, every year, I think.
As presenter?
No, what do you mean?
Well, because he did the lead of the Smiths, didn't he? For a while, the cover band.
Yeah, no, but he's got his "He's Never Gonna Give Me Up" Rickrolled thing that everybody loves. No, he just does his hits. I think he does like "Never Gonna Give You Up," some other songs that no one gives a shit about. "Never Gonna Give You Up Again," then an encore of "Never Gonna Give You Up Again," and it's done.
Yeah, good.
But it's great. He's very like his energy. I would, if you get a chance to watch that is a really good performance. He does it every year. You can't help but feel good about things.
Ah, that's nice.
And it's that when you're feeling good, That's when you're at your weakest, and that's when the Jews strike and they get you. You got to ever be vigilant. Rick Astley's working for the Jews. All celebrities are. Anytime you feel good or happy about anything, you've been fooled into it. Anyway, that's just a little tip for you truckers. What we talk about? Yeah, Kneecap. So there was a big thing to get them banned. I'm glad they're not being banned. Seems like Glastonbury is going to go with it. What's his face? Crispin Flintoff did a good segment on it where all of these high profile, not well known, but for very successful media producers and record label people secretly told Glastonbury they didn't want him to perform. And then the list of who they were was leaked. And a lot of them took down their social medias immediately and, put their website on hiatus because they weren't public figures, but they had obviously public profiles in the business. And they were obviously hugely embarrassed by this. And this is the thing that's disgusting is like people secretly holding these views and trying, kind of like the Jews. Anyway, let's move on. Neil Young is also performing.
Yeah.
He's headlining on Saturday night. And this is something I saw recently that he is not listed on the BBC One's main listing. Now, obviously, they normally show all of the major acts on each night on the main stage. Yeah. And apparently last time he performed, 2009, he was very controlling of what the BBC could show, and he wouldn't let them show the full concert because Neil Young is an arsehole, right? Unfortunately. Right. Because I don't know about you, but I think he's just one of the greatest songwriters of all time. And the older I get, the more I can't believe how fucking good his stuff is. But he is also an arsehole. Like really just weird. Like the whole thing with Spotify where he took all his songs down because they had Joe Rogan's podcast on it. Just like really kind of reactionary in like a libtard way. Anyway, so that's another interesting thing, whether Neil Young will be on the BBC. I don't know. But the other thing to talk about in regard to this, I suppose, is Palestine Action. I don't know if you've heard what's going on with them.
Oh, God, yeah, I did. Yeah, they're going to be turned into a terrorist organization. Well, turned into, labeled.
yeah. Put through a machine. One of those old, like, mechanical machines where you have to, like, wind it up. They get chewed up into it. Right now, obviously, I support Palestine Action entirely. I think they've done really, really amazing stuff. And they brought a lot of things to light that wouldn't be brought to light. Obviously, when Yvette Cooper changes the law to being a terrorist act, I will immediately change my opinion because they're a terrorist act and I don't like terrorists. Don't know about you, Matt.
Exactly,
do you like terrorists?
Exactly. Definitely not, Daniel.
No. So even though they won't have actually done anything to change my view on them, my view will change. I can guarantee you that.
Exactly. Good. Fall into line.
I think that's on Monday. Boy. There's a protest on Monday outside Parliament, I believe, or whatever July the 7th is, when Yvette Cooper is going to be speaking, because it's not a bill. It's already an act, the terrorist act.
Right.
What Yvette Cooper is going to do is put in an order that deems Palestine Action as a terrorist group. So it's not like having to.
Oh, an order. Okay.
So it's not a law. I don't think there's going to be a vote on it. It's just like this is the new truth. Forget history. This is true now. Palestine Action are terrorists, and it is unbelievable because another thing that in fact, a lot of right-wing papers have brought this up because Kemi Badenoch, I think, mentioned it in Parliament. So the thing that's pushed them over into the government having to do this was that they broke into an RAF base and sabotaged.
And painted the plane.
Yeah. But I think that more than painted it, I think that fucked it up because they're very delicate. Oh. They're very delicate, these planes. A little bit of paint. And I think they actually are.
Deployed this spud gun.
yeah, exactly. You do
their like, puny Western defenses cannot
cannot
stop our water balloons.
They should have done a poo on it. I think that would be funny if just do a poo on the engine and that just disables the entire thing. But millions of pounds worth of damage, apparently. And highly embarrassing for the RAF because they were just some kids or whatever who broke in, broke into an RAF base.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Kemi Badnoch brought up in Parliament the fact that many, many years ago in a different world, Keir Starmer defended, as a human rights lawyer, which he was once, he defended someone for doing pretty much the same thing, which is breaking into an RAF base. And now he's calling it terrorism. And people are saying it's hypocritical. And I quite like this. Like, people have been saying Keir Starmer's hypocritical for so long. And people obviously deny it. And every time they deny it, something else comes out that's even more hypocritical. And I just like the idea of Starmer, like, oh, I'm just getting away with it. I'm going to see how far I can push this.
Do you remember in that terrible Terminator sequel where old Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's the goody, meets young Arnold Schwarzenegger when they first developed CGI?
Oh no, but it sounds like a horrendous
They have a
scene.
fight together where young Arnie looks really strong and old Arnie's all sort of battered up.
It's old. The Terminator films, the old Arnie in that film is also a Terminator, presumably.
Yeah.
And Terminators don't age.
Well, for some reason, this one does something to do with time travel. But I was thinking it could be
ages. He ages in the synthetic skin. But presumably, he's supposed to look like he does, and then when you put him up against the young one, you can see that he clearly doesn't. Isn't that kind of stupid? I mean, obviously, the Terminator films generally are flawless, but this sounds like a major error.
Yeah. Again, it's all contradictions.
Anyway, sorry,
that
wasn't your point, was it? I do apologize.
My point was that sounds like old Keir Starmer having a fight with young Keir Starmer about his beliefs. He's like, I've been looking forward to... No, that's fucking Emperor, isn't it, from Star Wars? However Arnold Schwarzenegger speaks.
The Emperor has his
I'm going to kick your ass.
The Emperor has clones as well, so it's equally apt. It's one of the Emperor's good human rights clones having a fight with the later twisted post-Death Star death Emperor.
Yeah.
Who's attached to like one of those arms where you get toys out of the bin.
Oh, yeah, the grabbers.
Do you remember that?
Toy grabber.
And he's like going around the cave on this arm. Do you remember that bit?
Of Toy Story or real life arcades or what the fuck are you talking
Star
about?
Star Wars, the Emperor. He's attached to an arm at the end of the final film that came.
Oh, the final one that
the very
I
final
probably
one.
Only watched that
he's
one
in
once.
Like some there was a lot going on that it was horrendous. I was seething. I was like, when you're like so angry that you've got like moisture in your eyes. So I did miss a lot of it.
Yeah, I always thought Ian McDermott was the best baddie of all time. Because not only did he fight against the Jedi, but he also reached out beyond the screen and destroyed all of our childhood by ruining the Star Wars franchise.
Oh,
made him a real incredibly good baddie.
I don't think it was his fault, was it?
Postmodern baddie. Well, he was brilliant in all the others, but it was shit last episode, wasn't it? Anyway, we're doing another countdown now to the weather and the news where you're from.
Where I'm from?
Where you're from?
East London. What's the news in East London? They're building...
The Bilderberg.
Yes?
Bilderberg.
You won't let me speak, will you, Matt?
Sorry. It's the delay.
Time. Oh, it's the delay, is it? It's the fucking delay. Right, yeah, that's it. I was going to give you some news. You had your chance. You blew it. Let's talk about Adam Curtis. Or we can watch...
For the benefit of... I'm holding my breath. You won't even let me do that.
Shut up. We can either do Adam Curtis or we can watch some funny Starmer clips.
Funny Starmer clips.
Oh, fine. So that means that now I have to share my screen somehow. It's just very annoying. Fine. Good. Good. Well done.
Funny Starmer.
I sent them all to you, right, on WhatsApp. So we'll just go through your WhatsApp.
Keir Starmer for salvation.
So this is the Downing Street YouTube channel. You heard about this?
No.
It's been going since 2015, maybe. I looked up the earliest videos on it. The earliest videos are of Theresa May as Prime Minister. So it's a YouTube channel that changes with the times, and I don't know who runs it,
I like the sound of it. Flip flop.
but presumably when you become prime minister, one of the first duties you have to do is appoint someone to run this YouTube channel for you.
Right.
Make like loads of shitty clips of you. The clips are particularly bad because they're Keir Starmer, but generally it's a poor idea. I mean, I can talk obviously the success story of this YouTube channel. Can we talk about how badly this YouTube channel is going, Matt? Can we? Are we allowed to do that?
Yes, I mean it's going badly on multiple dimensions. So yeah,
the other thing that
it might take a while.
Do you want to do comments?
Sure.
Or do you want to do comments?
Let's look at the Starmer. Let's look at the Starmer.
All right, but we just don't have time for all of this. There's so much content, Matt. It's crazy. Let me share.
Comments.
Share this. Okay, share. All right, there we go. Okay, so this is this is sort of clips that did really well for Donald Trump, I think, when he was running. Like this one particularly. Let's start with this one. This is a YouTube short. Doesn't give me the time. Gives me no information. That's great. But it's about, how long is it? It's 5 seconds. This is a 5-second clip of Starmer in silhouette walking out of it's not Downing Street, is it? I don't know where it is. What do you think about this?
Nothing. I have nothing. Nothing to say about this boring clip. Why have they put it there?
I don't know.
It makes him look heroic because he's in silhouette.
Does it though?
Yes. What do you think?
Let's see what the comments say.
I'm getting better at this.
True leader. This guy is convinced. Power crazy man equals dangerous man. Give away everything when we didn't need to give away a thing. That's all good stuff, but you're not talking about this clip. That's the problem with these. It's the problem with a lot of comments, I find. Address the clip. The clip it's mental, right? It doesn't have, it doesn't do, but it worked with Trump. I remember when Trump put out.
Trump looks great when he does these kind of clips. He does silhouettes and it's like over the head shot and like there's a massive military plane there. And
there's something about Trump having purpose.
Yeah, he doesn't. He thinks he's got purpose at least.
Yeah, but Starmer, anyway. Let's look at. I think we've absolutely rinsed this clip mercilessly. Let's move on to another one.
Doubled the views, Daniel.
No, well, we'll talk about views. This is 1,700 likes. I think this is the most recent one, or one of them. So this is Starmer. It's all like out of like some sort of American Psycho BMW advert. You know, it's like slowly walking in suits with private jets. I don't know what it's trying to. So here we go. Let's go. Why is he? This is interesting. Oh, is he holding his tie because of the helicopter propellers? Is that what it is? But it looks like he's nervously scrunching his tie. Anyway, I'm sorry. This is great content, isn't it, Matt? No wonder this YouTube channel is not doing so well.
But it'll pick up. I reckon it'll pick up when British defence spending really kicks in around about 2035. Always looks so serious. Where is he now? He's on the top of a tank. He's coming out again. I better keep my tie all held nice and closely.
That's it. That's the end of the clip. So it's a helicopter ride. Join me, Keir Starmer, on a brief helicopter ride. I don't know where he's going, what he's doing. Oh, here we go. Starmer arrives by helicopter at the G7 summit in Canada.
Yeah.
If you were curious about how he arrived exactly, then you won't be anymore. I don't know who is editing these, what the point, but there is a lot of close-ups of Starmer sort of gormlessly looking around, kind of observing the opulence of his life. Well, let's look at here's Keir Starmer doing some work at Checkers.
It's just a lot of him walking in and out of rooms. I wonder if he posed for that. Oh, look at that pen. It's an expensive looking fountain pen. Now he's up again.
Oh, yeah, great.
And loop. Loop to the loop.
Can we get some of them
God,
talking?
really wish I'd watched these in advance. They're an absolute wealth of information. Hi, and thank you very much for making time. I really wanted to talk to you and really hear your stories, your experience, because this is such a good scheme. And through you, we can sort of inspire other people.
So, like,
Maybe not properly.
yeah, the sound. So this one, at least, you've got a bit of music and him speaking. On the other ones, it's just this horrible kind of background sound. It's very disconcerting. With this one, it's a bit more
What's
polished.
What's Emma the
I don't know, but
Trailblazer?
the editing is awful. And it looked, I think they are in the same room. It's a bit like us. They're having a conversation on Zoom or something. But it looks like that he's not even answering the question. You know what I mean? Like they found something to add to whatever his Gormless response is that's completely separate. So this,
Right, yeah. Chopped it up in a weird way. I think it's changed my life and the way that I look at it.
yeah, I mean, it's all that kind of classic stuff of like, I think Keir Starmer is really good, and I love how personable he is, and he made me feel like I had been heard, and that is why I like him. And it was great that he can. It's this kind of really stilted, scripted shit
Yeah.
that it's then even on top of that, they still have to edit it really badly because they go off script. It's like just out of it. She's like, actually, I don't think that. I think he's horrendous. Jews control the world. They have to cut back to the do 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 fucking in betweener style music. Should we look at some comments? I don't know how much time we've got.
Yes.
But I did say,
Comments on our on complaints on a plate.
yeah, can you see this? They can't. I don't know if they can see us while we're looking. This is very bad technology. We can't even do a split screen. So they're just looking at the comments. Actually, I'll look at the comments.
You tell me the best ones.
I'll just read them to you, and then you can look back at our mugs while we do this. I'll just go through. These are just the latest ones. I haven't had time to actually. There have been some good ones. Hopefully, we'll find them. Okay, so this is just off all videos. These are the latest comments that have come through. First one. The Independent Alliance is an Islamic group. Think of Sinn Féin, except they take up their seats.
Amazing.
I think it means they don't do the kneecapping, but just think people who do are top blokes. So what do you think about that, Matt?
Didn't understand it. Well, you interpret it for me. I don't think we even discussed any of that.
Well, they think that the Independent Alliance with Jeremy Corbyn and 4 of their MPs.
Oh, that
they're a terrorist organization akin to Sinn Féin, and Sinn Féin kneecap people. His one moderate thing is that, as far as he knows, the Independent Alliance don't kneecap people, but they think that people that do are top blokes.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Next.
Next one. This is from James Scott, something K3K. This is in response to us discussing Corbyn and a new left-wing party. He says, it's called the Greens. Join Greens, organise. The fucking 10-minute signs just come up over my screen, so I can't get rid of that. Join Greens, organise the new momentum. Back Zach Polanski, the new JC. What do you think about that?
Was it Jack Polanski, that one that we weren't too sure about the other week?
Zach Polanski,
from
yes.
Yeah. No, yeah, don't know. Don't know.
There are certain stories, right, that I think, like, give me a sign that Newscum is doing the right thing, that we've come at the right time, we've emerged, right? One of them is the Ukrainian rent boys story. I felt like that was made for, that story emerged as we started the podcast, and it's like, clearly we're in the zeitgeist. We're feeling out how the world operates at this very moment. Yeah. There's been a 4th arrest, by the way.
Oh, really?
But this time it's an older Romanian gentleman. So
maybe he was the pimp.
But there's other stories, right? Another story would be the leak of Findom sex videos of Glenn Greenwald. We haven't really covered it, but just simmering in the background, that I think there's something about that and Newscum that works. I don't know what it is. There's a marriage there somehow. Another one is the Zach Polanski, before he became a politician, was a struggling sort of actor. I think he worked with Punch Drunk Love or whatever they're called. And he's doing that kind of, the sort of interactive, immersive theatre in London.
Oh, okay.
That kind of stuff. But he was struggling, so he had like all sorts of jobs. And one job he had was as a hypnotherapist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was the Sun or one of the rags sent a journalist there to him as a kind of this. He wasn't a politician or anything, so it wasn't like a gotcha on him. It was just like a stupid story that they wanted to do. And they said he said that he could get his hypnotherapy thing was that he could get you to, what's the word, envision. You know, when you like think,
visualize.
Yeah, visualize like being rich and you get rich, that kind of thing. You know, the vision board. It's like a hypnotherapy like that. Like you tell him what you want and then he will hypnotize you into
normal hypnotherapy. Yeah.
Oh, is that all that way? Okay.
I think so, yeah.
All right.
Visualize not smoking.
Oh, yeah, I suppose so. But I guess he was more for broader things. So she said you could do it for everything. So they sent a journalist who wanted bigger breasts, a female journalist. Right. Hasten to add. And he probably just wanted the gig and probably did think it's not going to do any harm. So he gave her a session and it's all a bit of a joke, you know. And the article treats it as a joke, but it's something now that's being thrown back in his face that, you know, Zach Polanski he used to work as hypnotherapy trying to help women get larger breasts. And we're going to run with it. I don't care what you think. This is my podcast, Matt.
It is.
My
it
house,
is.
my rules.
It is, and I'm nothing to do with it. The way I like to see it, anyway.
No, you are. Anyway, yeah. So that was that's an interesting one. I don't think that's the worst thing that Zach Polanski's ever done. But
that sounds a bit weird, doesn't it? Like,
but it's that weirdness. It's that weirdness.
Word,
I think.
I know. I get it for the podcast. The word you're looking for is manifest.
Yes.
You're trying to manifest
destiny.
Something, but you can't really manifest bigger boobs. Oh, hey, that could be the slogan for the revenge party. For Newscum.
The revenge party.
Manifest
the revenge party. This neo-fascist militant party. Manifest breast. I don't know if that would work. All right. Do you have a look at more comments? We'll just keep going until we've got 5 minutes, 49 seconds until we get cut off again.
It'll be a brilliant cut at the end of this whole episode. Let's do the comments until
Nigel Farage
we're dead.
Can just start a party. Like that's quoting me, I think, because he knows he can count on blank check from the same people that benefit from him bashing on immigrants to keep the multiracial working class down. I think that's a fair point. I should have mentioned that. Yeah, one of the problems with starting a left-wing party and why there's a lot of planning involved is that you are going to be up against it. You do kind of need to be prepared to be immediately attacked. You know, like you just ran a humble hypnotherapist business one time and people are just going to mercilessly bring it up all the time.
Yeah.
Michelle, this is a response to someone else called Michelle. I'll have to find their thing first. Oh, this person's written a lot. Okay, here we go. I'll try and put this in order. Mr. Corbyn is 77 years old. And how old was Biden or Trump? I'm 55 and Corbyn makes me feel exhausted with all his rallies and cycling round. And cycling round Croatia. Has he been doing that?
Haven't seen that, but right.
And then this person has replied, this is quite a nice little thing. So one of them said Corbyn's 77 years old, which I think is fair enough. Just on that note, I think ideally, absolutely ideal world, Corbyn, a new party is launched with Corbyn as leader, and then he immediately steps down and there's a leadership election. I think that makes sense.
Right, that's what you want. That's your big vision.
As I'm saying it, I'm like,
for the growth of the left.
Completely
it's
stupid.
A really convoluted, fucking tangled up, fucking confusing leadership battle. After the launching of launching 6 years too late, of a fucking already failed party.
Major flip flop. Scrap that. Anyway, this guy's saying Corbyn is 77 years old. Not saying if that's old or young. He's just
Not that
saying,
old, really.
making that claim.
Not-
Michelle
do
has
that as
interpreted that as him saying it's too old and saying, well, you know what, Biden, Trump. Then this person's come back, and this is like a nice thing to see. He said, Michelle, you're right. There are 650,000 grassroots people ready to become members of real Labour. The real Labour movement is not doing top-down building of government. So it was nice that they got an agreement there. The last bit is a dig at me for saying that there's top-down, which there is. So you can fuck yourself on that one. I think that someone else made a comment that maybe I should address. Oh yeah, here we go. This is Michelle's other comment. I don't think your analysis is accurate in that you're saying it's a top-down structure that is organizing for a new left party. In reality, it is taking so long because it's not top-down. If it was top-down, it could be done in a heartbeat. It is my understanding that discussions are taking place between hundreds of grassroots organizations and campaigners around the new left. That's why it's taking so long. To be fair, Michelle, I said that. I think we're completely in agreement. I didn't say it in like a particularly positive way, but I said that the left has taken a long time to organize what's going on, and it's a marriage between a top down and a grassroots.
You did, yeah.
There is obviously people at the top who are close to Corbyn and sort of established political figures that have not just emerged from local grassroots organizations, and those are the people who are going to create a party and probably, and officially sign one up, right? And so it's not some guy from the street that's going to emerge as the leader, as interesting as that would be. It's going to be somebody from the Corbyn movement, which I think makes sense. Corbyn should lead it case Starmer Hearth Israel not getting in again, kiddo. Your response?
I think I can interpret that very mistyped, but it sounds like Starmer won't get in again because he has been so supportive of Israel, I think is what the comment is saying. And then I think there's something else in that, but it's very confusing. Just in case, I think they mean, not it case. I guess there are other leaders. I wonder what Andrew Feinstein and people like that might. Do you think someone like that might be able to be a leader?
I think Andrew Feinstein
of the movement?
would be a suitable leader. He doesn't have a British accent, which is not a big deal, but there is something to be said. He also is bald.
Brilliant. Well done, Andrew.
I've got a big thing about that, and I think generally I believe that there is a bias that there is some kind of evil secret force, maybe the Jews, are not allowing bald people to be leaders. Because remember, you had the Tories, you had IDS, and the other one in quick succession.
Oh, Michael Howard.
No.
Something of the night.
No. Is Michael Howard even bald?
Oh, Michael Howard. Yeah.
No, Michael Howard, no.
You mean
We're
William
running out of time.
Hague.
We're less than a minute.
William Hague.
William Hague.
And he wore a little cap to stop him looking
neither
bold.
of them won, and we all know why.
Exactly. Yes, because they're bold.
So I think there should be a bald leader.